From drug trafficking to human smuggling, arms dealing, and even cybercrime, cartels have evolved into multi-billion-dollar empires. Which ones are the most dangerous? And how do they operate on such a massive scale? Stick around, because today we're breaking it all down. Before we dive in, do let us know in the comments down below, which cartel do you think is the most dangerous? And don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you're new here. Let's begin, shall we? The Sinaloa Cartel, the kingpin of drug trafficking. First up, we have the Sinaloa Cartel, arguably the most infamous drug trafficking organization in the world. Based in Mexico, this cartel has been a dominant force in the global drug trade for decades. But what makes them so dangerous? Founded in the late 1980s, the Sinaloa Cartel quickly rose to power under the leadership of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman. Even though El Chapo is now behind bars, the cartel continues to thrive, controlling a significant portion of the drug trade in the Americas. They're responsible for smuggling billions of dollars worth of cocaine, methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl into the United States and beyond. Here's the scary part. The Sinaloa Cartel isn't just a Mexican problem. They've established networks in over 50 countries, from Europe to Asia. Their ability to adapt and innovate is what sets them apart. For example, they've started using drones to transport drugs across borders and even built sophisticated tunnels under the US-Mexico border. But it's not just their operations that make them dangerous. It's their ruthlessness. The Sinaloa Cartel is known for its brutal violence, including assassinations, kidnappings, and even mass killings. They've effectively turned parts of Mexico into war zones, and their influence shows no signs of waning. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel, CJNG, the rising threat. Next on our list is the Jalisco New Generation Cartel, or CJNG. If you haven't heard of them yet, you will soon. This cartel is the fastest growing and most violent criminal organization in Mexico, and they're giving the Sinaloa Cartel a run for its money. Founded in 2010, the CJNG has rapidly expanded its operations, thanks to its aggressive tactics and military-grade weaponry. They're involved in drug trafficking, but they've also diversified into other criminal activities like oil theft and human trafficking. What sets the CJNG apart is their willingness to take on anyone who stands in their way, including the Mexican government. They've shot down military helicopters, ambushed police convoys, and even detonated car bombs. This isn't just a cartel, it's a paramilitary force. The CJNG's leader, Nemesio El Mencho Oseguera, is one of the most wanted men in the world, with a $10 million bounty on his head. But despite the efforts of law enforcement, the CJNG continues to grow, spreading its influence across Mexico and into the United States. The Ndrangheta, the silent empire. Now, let's shift our focus to Europe, where the Ndrangheta reigns supreme. This Italian organized crime group might not have the same name recognition as the Mexican cartels, but don't let that fool you. They're one of the most powerful and dangerous criminal organizations in the world. Based in the southern region of Calabria, the Ndrangheta has been around for over a century, but it's only in recent decades that they've become a global powerhouse. They control an estimated 80% of Europe's cocaine trade, and their annual revenue is believed to be in the tens of billions of dollars. What makes the Ndrangheta so dangerous is their ability to operate in the shadows. Unlike other cartels, they avoid flashy displays of violence and instead focus on building alliances with politicians, businesses, and even other criminal groups. This low-profile approach has allowed them to infiltrate legitimate industries and expand their influence across the globe, but don't think they're not ruthless. The Ndrangheta is known for their strict code of silence and brutal enforcement methods. Betrayal is met with swift and deadly consequences, making it nearly impossible for law enforcement to penetrate their ranks. The Gulf Cartel, the original drug lords. Next up, we have the Gulf Cartel, one of the oldest and most influential drug trafficking organizations in Mexico. While they may not be as dominant as they once were, they're still a major player in the global drug trade. Founded in the 1930s, the Gulf Cartel was one of the first groups to establish a drug trafficking route into the United States. Over the years, they've faced fierce competition from other cartels, but they've managed to survive by adapting to changing circumstances. One of the Gulf cartel's most notorious offshoots is the Zetas, a paramilitary group that was originally formed to protect the cartel's interests. The Zetas became infamous for their extreme violence, including beheadings and mass killings. But they eventually split from the Gulf Cartel and became a rival organization. Today, the Gulf Cartel is still active, though they've lost some of their former glory. They continue to traffic drugs, but they've also diversified into other criminal activities like human smuggling and extortion. The Russian Mafia, the global network. Finally, we have the Russian Mafia, a term that encompasses a wide range of organized crime groups operating in Russia and beyond. While they might not fit the traditional definition of a cartel, their influence and reach are undeniable. The Russian Mafia emerged in the aftermath of the Soviet Union's collapse, taking advantage of the chaos to establish control over various industries. Today, they're involved in everything from drug trafficking and arms dealing to cybercrime and money laundering. What makes the Russian Mafia so dangerous is their ability to operate on a global scale. They've established connections with other criminal organizations, including Mexican cartels and Italian mafia groups, and they've infiltrated governments and financial institutions around the world. But perhaps their most alarming capability is their involvement in cybercrime. Russian hackers have been linked to some of the largest cyber attacks in history, including ransomware attacks that have crippled hospitals, businesses, and even entire cities. The Medellin cartel, the cocaine kings of the past. While many of the cartels we've discussed are still active today, we can't talk about dangerous cartels without mentioning the Medellin cartel. This Colombian powerhouse, led by the infamous Pablo Escobar, was once the most feared criminal organization in the world. At its peak in the 1980s, the Medellin cartel controlled up to 80% of the global cocaine trade. Escobar's empire was built on a foundation of extreme violence, including bombings, assassinations, and even the downing of a commercial airliner. His wealth was so vast that he was once listed as one of the richest men in the world. Though the Medellin cartel was dismantled after Escobar's death in 1993, its legacy lives on. Many of the tactics and networks they established are still used by modern cartels today. Escobar's story is a chilling reminder of how one man's ambition can destabilize entire nations. The Knights Templar cartel, the cult-like criminals. Next, we have the Knights Templar cartel, a Mexican criminal organization that operated more like a cult than a traditional cartel. Based in the state of Michoacan, this group rose to power in the early 2010s, blending drug trafficking with a twisted ideology. The Knights Templar cartel presented themselves as protectors of the people, even distributing pamphlets outlining their code of conduct. But behind this facade was a brutal regime of extortion, kidnapping, and murder. They controlled Michoacan's lucrative avocado and lime industries, using the profits to fund their operations. What makes the Knights Templar unique is their pseudo-religious branding. They claimed to be modern-day knights, fighting for justice, but their actions were anything but noble. Their reign of terror eventually led to widespread rebellion, with local militias rising up to drive them out. While the Knights Templar cartel has been largely dismantled, their influence lingers in Michoacan, and their story serves as a stark example of how cartels can exploit both fear and ideology to maintain control. The Albanian Mafia, Europe's silent predators. Finally, we have the Albanian Mafia, a lesser-known but incredibly dangerous criminal network that has spread across Europe and beyond. While they may not have the same name recognition as some of the other groups on this list, their reach and ruthlessness are undeniable. Emerging in the 1990s after the fall of communism, the Albanian Mafia quickly established itself as a major player in drug trafficking, human smuggling, and arms dealing. They're known for their strict code of loyalty and their ability to operate in secrecy, making them incredibly difficult for law enforcement to track. What sets the Albanian Mafia apart is their ability to form alliances with other criminal groups, including the Italian Mafia and Mexican cartels. They've also become experts in cybercrime, using the dark web to traffic drugs and launder money. But perhaps their most disturbing activity is their involvement in human trafficking. The Albanian mafia is one of the largest suppliers of sex workers in Europe, exploiting vulnerable women and girls for profit. Their operations are a grim reminder of the human cost of organized crime. So, there you have it, the most dangerous cartels in the world. From the Sinaloa cartel's global drug empire to the Russian mafia's cybercrime operations, these organizations are a reminder of the dark side of globalization. But here's the question: can these cartels ever be stopped? Or are they simply too powerful, too adaptable, and too entrenched in our world? Let me know what you think in the comments below.